Hi guys, and welcome back to the Citadel with me, Daniel M. Today we take a break from the league games we have been showing you, and we've got a game between, on the right hand side, Richard Walker playing Greyjoy Fealty, and on the left, myself, playing my Martel Dragon deck, which we saw being played by Bill in a previous video. This game, Richard was playing his Greyjoy Fealty, which took him to the top 8 in the Bristol Regional, as I wanted to test this Martel Dragon deck against something more competitive than it had been playing against in the past. I have to say though that Greyjoy in general, Martel's a bad matchup for. Just because you can control the icons of their effective characters, their Balons, their Asher, and you can also get around some of their tricks, such as stealthy using Ariane and aGoT and those sorts of things. So I'm not just keeping this hand because I'm an idiot. I'd mulliganed. I'd initially seen a handful of events and then mulliganed and saw another handful of events. So it's not terrible. I do have 2 reducers, I've got Doran for some draw, but I really do just have a handful of events. I saw at least 2 Tears of Lease in there. I think I had a confinement. Not particularly useful cards to see straight away. However, and you can just see I've drawn a 3rd Tears of Lease. So while the Tears of Lease is good in this matchup, really helpful for controlling those Greyjoy characters who lack the intrigue icons, I would normally hope for a slightly better setup. There is only one Doran in the deck. He is literally only in there for the draw, because there are very few lords or ladies that I want him to be affecting. I've thought about cutting him, maybe running a Counting Coppers instead, but the games he has shown up in, he's been really effective. As this deck, normally the issue with Doran is he struggles to get off that insight because he's a 6/4, not a particularly strong character. However, this deck tries to keep the board so small that he will often get off his insight just by himself. The other thing is, in this matchup, you'll see me get a lot of draw out of him, just because Greyjoy don't have those intrigue icons. So Richard got a 4-card setup. I know he doesn't often like this sort of setup. He's got lots of chuds. He prefers to get kind of a bigger character out early, and have something on the board that's impactful. But a 4-card setup with a reducer and a Lord Sport Shipwright to isn't too bad. I'm not going to have a huge number of locations he can control, but any King's Roads I do get, he's going to have some control over that. So, summonsing for Nymeria. I was in this matchup probably hoping to get Miri first, Miriam Azdur, but I think that Nymeria is going to be very helpful. Now, I think the way that Greyjoy kind of combat the Martel in this matchup is, hopefully is try and trick me into using Nymeria too early. If you've got Nymeria playing against Greyjoy, hold on to it until you absolutely need to use it. Richard drew a Euron and a newly made Lord. The Euron is really going to help him if you can keep him on the board. He's going to be able to defend those intrigue challenges for him, and it's going to make it really hard for me to get off any Tears of Lease. And he's also much harder to kill than Balon or Asher. So that's quite effective for him. Me kneeling the Daily Scavengers, obviously going to be playing Nymeria. Oh no, playing Ariane. So this is one of the things I love about this deck. It is only running 2 Ariane. I've seen a lot of Martel decks recently running 3 of and really abusing that 5-cost slot. We have a couple of players in the local meta, Daisy, who you've seen in previous videos especially, who really like the Mountain, and I don't like playing that quantity of 5-cost characters, when you've got cards out there like the Mountain that will just screw you. So Richard chosen to play out Balon. He's still got a gold left, so he could have played out Euron instead. I'm not sure how I feel about that. But he does have the Sea Stone Split Chair, so he's thinking he can use Balon to take out a significant number of my characters because of that unopposed. He does know I have got Nymeria in hand, and I am going first, so I can use Arianne and then jump Nymeria in to get rid of that military icon. So I don't think I'm too worried at this moment, but I do remember this game was me constantly playing around the Sea Stone Chair. I remember didn't draw into a huge number of military icons, and I was constantly kind of trying to make sure I didn't lose that military challenge. To do an intrigue challenge with Nymeria, even though there's no claim, just Tyr's Balon. Now, Richard doesn't have any Iron Mines on the board. However, I know he's a fan of Risen from the Sea, so we'll have to see if he's got one in hand, and maybe that's why he felt safe putting Balon out on the board. So I passed on the rest of my challenges. Didn't think there was any point trying to put through a power challenge. What I did do though is I took Balon's military icon so that I've got Nymeria to be able to defend, and also so that Balon won't negate her strength, just to help me survive this round. I would say at the minute with Balon out on the board, despite being Tyrs, I still feel on the back foot, just because I think he's got the Risen from Sea in hand. One of the interesting things about Richard's deck on the right is he is playing the Raiders from Pike, which give weapons ambush. So I know he's got throwing axes, I know he's got fishing nets. Richard's done the unopposed power with Balon, and he's doing a military challenge with 2 Chuds, just so he can still win. And I just get rid of a reducer there. Richard's got his pillage. I know Richard's quite a fan of pillage, especially in Fealty and crossing builds. He's told me before that he quite likes being able to not just rely on your opponent playing and using King's Roads, trying to pillage some as well. And yes, Richard did have a Risen from Sea in his hand. Obviously that's why he felt safe with Balon out the board, but I had a Hand's Judgment in response. This deck runs 2 Hand's Judgment. I don't think that's always the right call on every deck. It runs 2 just because it runs 3 Varus. And ensuring you can Varus through a Hand's Judgment, through a Treachery, sorry, is really, really important. Just for if the board gets out of control, before you see any of your big characters, being able to Varus and then playing out your big characters. Often your Varus kind of turn 1, maybe turn 2 to push, but it's normally an early play, which is why it's running 3. Moving into the second round, what I would like to see Richard do is probably like to see him play out that Balon, try and push through, maybe get some stealth out as well, push through some unopposed challenges to try and get rid of Nymeria, because Nymeria is going to give him problems otherwise. I'm playing Calling the Banners. I've got quite a lot of high cost characters in my hand, as you can see, and also quite a few events. Richard playing Heads on Spikes to try and probably kill Arianne. Fistful of cards there, looking to see what he can get rid of. Gets rid of Confinement. Confinement, I'm not too sad about seeing it go. It's a useful card, especially if he gets Asher on the table, but it is one of my most recent cuts from the deck. I had been running Tourney Grounds, so I wanted to get the value out of the Tourney Grounds. However, Tourney Grounds is more recently kind of jumped in and out of the deck, and I've replaced Confinements with his Viper Eyes. because what his Viperize does for you is it effectively can replace a Hand's Judgment preemptively. Hand's Judgment is obviously a reactionary card, but holding onto his Viperize, playing it when you lose a challenge, when you think you want to use a Put to the Sword or a Tears of Lease, or even a Vengeance from Fealty, you can play the Viperize before, when you lose that challenge, that military or power challenge, to scout out the cards in their hands. Have they got their own Hand's Judgment? Have they got something else, that their Treachery, or maybe you want to get rid of their Put to the Sword? And you can get that out of their hand early, before they've even got a chance to use it. So I really like his Viperize in this deck. Yes, it's not as good necessarily as the Baratheon event Seen Flames because of that Relore trait. However, I think, and it's obviously a bit more conditional, you have to lose to be able to play it. But I really like kind of thematically that looking at your hand and getting rid of cards, kind of that alternate intrigue might not necessarily be a thing that Martel normally do, but that losing to win to get that information is a very Martel theme, which I really like. So we're into marshalling again. Richard had complained about on the night having missed in almost every game with Heads on Spikes, which he was quite upset about. And I'm gonna just play out Ariane again. She's a little bit more costly to play out when you haven't seen any of the Martel in House of Juices or any economy at all. However, I am running quite a high gold plot pool. Richard, looking at my board, obviously I've got Nymeria who can oppose military challenges, but if he can get some boats on the table, he would be able to push through his Seastone chair. I know his deck isn't built around Seastone, he's probably only got one in the deck, I think. It's there as a threat, but it's a big threat for me. I also don't think he is playing boats. He seems to play this Greyjoy deck in particular, preferring to go second, controlling what's on the board, and then kind of pushing through unopposed challenges that way, rather than going first. Asking me if I had any actions, trying to tempt me into using Nymeria too early, but no, I just said all I'm going to do is use Tourney Grounds. Kneeling it out at the beginning of the round, so just in case I do want to play any event, I've got it knelt already, especially if that event is a reaction or an interrupt. So again, obviously Richard's making me go first. Going first is very nice with Ariane. Lets you use her and then bounce in the character that you want to bounce in. However, I do always prefer going second when I've got Nymeria on the board. So I did my challenge with Ariane and then passed, left Nymeria standing, just so that I can control the board a bit. Oh no, sorry, Richard was going first. He did an injury challenge with the Lordsport Shipwright, which I defended because I've got things in my hand I really do not want to lose. Doing a military challenge against me now, and I'm just debating how I'm going to make sure this doesn't go unopposed. Yeah, I'm going to bring Ariane to my hand, playing it out quite carefully and using Unsullied to defend. Richard probably thinking I was just going to steal a military icon with Nymeria. The reason I did the Unsullied is I wanted to be able to use Nymeria offensively when I attack. I'm very, very wary of that Aeron Dampere on the table, because if he can win dominance, then he can bring Balon back. He's obviously got 2 golds, I've got 2 gold as well. He's used the Aeron now, so I'm slightly less cautious. However, with the number of events in my hand, I'm probably wanting to
play some events to control the board. Doing a power challenge at me, which I let just go unopposed because I've got no power to steal. He'll have a little bit more on his house card, which I can hopefully take back from him. Just going to take a injury challenge with Doran. I'm obviously thinking there, you can see me looking at my cards, thinking about doing the Tears of Lease. I would imagine I want to do that on Aeron, just to make sure that he's dead and there's no chance he can bring back Balon. Often you only see one of in a deck, but he can be so annoying when you finally get rid of that Balon, just bringing them back straight away. I think in the current meta, with the number of with Miri and with the amount of tiers out there, I think running more Aerons could be a good call. Just because he does, you can just sit back for a round, bring back Balon, bring back Euron or Asher, and that's such a tempo gain for yourself. And just wasting their events. And just doing a power challenge against Richard, getting 2 more power from the unopposed. End of challenge phase, Aeron goes to the dead pile, dominance is a tie, and I now feel quite safe that Balon's not going to be coming back. So I'm not too worried now. Obviously we've seen that he does have that Euron in hand still. That's going to be something that will let him control the board quite nicely, especially on defense. I do have the counter for it though with Nymeria. Euron against this deck, big characters like Euron or Tywin are the best defense against Miri Mazdur. If you leave them to sit there in defense, you can just kind of nullify any challenge that Miri goes at you in. It almost becomes pointless using her for her effect rather than just as a body. However, Nymeria is the counters to the counter. She allows you to kind of nullify those big character and force through a challenge, even if they leave them standing, which is why I like this deck. Richard played March to the Wall, which I quite like, effectively getting rid of my military icon on the table, and I'm playing First Snow because all of his characters are 3 cost or less. I want to put him in a position this turn where he doesn't feel like he can play out a big character because all his chads are going to bounce back to his hand and I'll just kill them. I'll have to see what he's got in his hand. Another interesting call in Richard's deck is playing the Black Wind's Crew, that 3 for 3 military and power Bicon with Pillage over Newly Made Lord. Yeah, Richard's call here I think was based on not that many people actually running First Snow in our meta, and actually when he took the deck to the regional, didn't see First Snow apparently most of the day. So actually in that sense it's a good call. However, personally I do prefer the Drowned Men, 4/3, Bicon as well, but they get boosted by all those lovely warships that Greyjoy like to have. So the thing I found playing this deck is First Snow is absolutely key. It is it's better than Wildfire just because you don't have like 1 or 2 or 3 really impactful characters. What you have is you've got a higher cost curve with characters that are going to do a lot for you. You've got Nymeria, you've got Miri, you've got the Knights of Sun who are going to get renowned later to help you with that power rush. You've got Doran. You've got these characters that you don't want to kill because they're giving you value. What you do want is you just want to get rid of the chud off their board so that you can kind of push through key challenges just to target remove their big guys, which is kind of what this is about. It's kind of runs slightly in a similar vein to the Lanny Kraken deck that's been around with all the removal in it, except it uses, I think it's got more tricks than that, and I also think that using Miri is very effective. Richard debating his marshalling, thinking if there's anything he can actually put on the table. He's got an interesting play that he uses now that we'll talk about a little bit. He is obviously, there's my tawny grounds on the table. I can't use that until the phase I want to use it in, so he's probably going to kneel it with his Lordsport Shipwright. However, he spends 2 gold and plays another Lordsport Shipwright. His reasoning for this is really good, actually, because he thinks, oh, you've got first snow, and he thinks I've got a King's Road. So I play out the King's Road, and he kneels it straight away. And talking to him, that's exactly the reason he played that second Lordsport Shipwright, because he didn't want me to be able to play out Ariane again, or play out another character right now. He wanted to force me to keep my board quite small, and didn't want me to get a natural military icon out on the table. Despite the fact that even a military icon isn't going to do much for me right now, but what it is going to stop me from doing is getting further ahead on board presence in this round when he hasn't been able to play anything out. I'm just a bit thinking about, is there any way I can get anything out on my hand? Deciding there was no point, so I've just kept that 2 gold back. Just going to show me his hand. Oh, and he's got a handful of low-cost characters, so that's not great for him. And he's got a lot of cards. With that march to the wall, he's going to have to discard down quite a lot. Nymeria, with no one to steal anything from, is a brick. She's just going to sit there and help me win dominance when I've still got the money anyway. So all I'm going to be able to do this round, probably do a power challenge. Richard's obviously got a lot of cards in his hand. He's going to have to discard down anyway. He's got a reserve of 5. Next round is when I'd really want to hit him on the intrigue. He will have filtered out the cards he doesn't actually want. And then the intrigue will be more impactful when his hand has been reduced by his reserve. So I'm just debating, kind of trying to go through the process of figuring out what I should be doing now with this challenge. But I think I'm just going to do a power challenge just to kind of keep whittling away at Richard's power. Drawing for insight, getting another King's Road. So I've got plenty of King's Roads, but not a huge number of characters to play with it. So what you can see at the minute, I'm managing to keep Richard on the back foot despite not having kind of a lot of characters in my hand, using the tricks that the deck has got. However, I think I'm only kind of surviving through it because Richard has had some bad draws. He hasn't seen Theon, he hasn't seen Asher. He's really struggling for those key characters that Greyjoy rely upon. So I've been really lucky in his poor draw, and I kind of, despite having at the beginning of the game a fistful of events, I have just kind of managed to maintain some pressure and survive. I'm just debating what I want to get rid of. I want to keep that King's Road for in case I draw Miri, and I'm just getting rid of a Condemned and a Confinement. Condemned is quite useful in this matchup. However, with Nymeria on the board, and having seen that Richard hasn't been able to draw a huge amount, I do feel relatively confident that I'm going to be able to get through those power challenges. Because I've got rid of Balon, I don't know that he's got Euron in his hand, so it'll just be a case of wait and see. So, what you can see is I've put, because of just being Martel, it's put pressure on the Greyjoy deck, whereas we're now entering the 3rd plot phase, and normally Greyjoy would like to be on kind of 6, 7, maybe 8 power by this point, having got through kind of unopposed challenges, kind of rushing to the finish. So what I'm going to do here is something I really don't like doing. I didn't have a huge number of plots that I wanted to do. You saw Fallen from Favour and some maybe Calling the Banners, none of which are going to do me any good. However, the reason I don't like my trading here is because what I've done to Richard is I put a whole load of cards back in his hand. Yes, he's had to discard down for reserve, but he's now got his best cards in his hand. And I've now just given him more money to be able to play out those best cards, especially on accounting Copper's turn. He now has 5 gold, which means he can play out kind of an Asher, he can play out a Theon. If he's got a King's Road in his hand, he can play out something even more effective, which we've just seen. So I've really enabled him to kind of get back into the game here. Unfortunately, because this deck was still going through testing, the plot deck wasn't optimized, and I didn't really have another option to play at this point in time. I didn't want to waste a confiscation in case he milked Nymeria. I didn't want to use Fallen from Favour, so because I'd be sacrificing kind of a bigger character. I haven't seen any of my chuds. I'm running 6 reducers, I'm running loads of 2-cost characters, but I just haven't seen them yet. So I kind of felt boxed into a corner. At this point in the game, I remember we were talking about the regional that Richard went to in Bristol, just kind of talking about quality of players and quality of plays. Richard just talking about how confident people were, kind of a really good field. And managing to get that Theon out on the table. I like the Theon play over trying to force out a Euron, because what this has allowed him to do is it allows him to pick up the Lordsport Shipwright and control the King's Road. I kind of go, oh, I should have kneel and sacked the King's Road already, but what this has done is it's knelt his Lordsport Shipwright. And as we've already seen, I've already got another King's Road in my hand. So I'm going to play out that King's Road in my hand just to get it on the board. And it means he doesn't have an intrigue icon on the table, which is quite nice. Going to use the King's Road to play out Ariane. And now I need to debate what I want to do with the rest of my gold. I know Richard is probably playing Wildfire, so I don't want to put too much out onto the board. But I also want to get enough onto the board that I can really kind of assert some presence here. So Edric Dane is great for that. Small character, but he's got some stealth, means I can defend against Theon, military attack if I need to, or obviously I can take it if I don't want to take it with Nymeria, and just a little 1-cost reducer. The 1-cost reducer was probably because I don't want to kill Edric Dane off a military challenge, but what I'm probably going to do is hold on to 4 gold here. Going to use an action just in the other 20 grounds anyway. Just to see. So what I did here was, I think it's a bit of a misplay. I took Theon's military icon. I remember at the time being really worried about the Seastone chair. But if I'd sat back and thought about it a lot more, I've obviously got Edric Dane to kind of prevent that unopposed. Instead, Richard just did a power challenge with Theon. I defended with Ariane to try and win it, just slow him down, but he boosted the strength with the 0-drop that Greyjoy have got, the Iron Fleet Scout. They're just pushing through a military of 2. So I've got 2 choices. I can defend it with Nymeria to win, or I could try and pay for Edric Dane, use Edric Dane to defend and lose anyway. I don't think it makes a huge amount of difference whichever way you do it, because otherwise I'm just going to kill the Chud. I had played out that Chud hoping to eventually use it for Miri, but effectively it is just claim sake. I did sit there and kind of, I'll let it go unopposed, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to use Ariane, bounce in the Unsullied, and use the Unsullied to defend. This gets Ariane off the table in case Rich does Wildfire, and I am kicking myself for very nearly letting Greyjoy get an unopposed military challenge, because he would have been able to kill Nymeria. I told Richard this, and he went, "Oh, I've got Seastone." He'd apparently forgotten about it at this point in the game. So, oh dear. So now we see why I jumped in the Unsullied. I'm now doing a military challenge for exactly 5. I wonder what I'm going to do with cards in my hand. I'm going to pay 2 to put Theon to the sword. What I've effectively done is just, as Richard starts to get more effective characters into board, just controlling them away, target removing them. I don't really care that he's got those little chuds there, just going to keep slowly whittling them away. What you can see me thinking about is I'm thinking about doing a Tears of Lys, just to kind of remove some of his characters. But what I decided is I don't actually care that much what he's got on the table. I'm just going to do an entry challenge with Doran, and then do a little chud power challenge. And then use those 2 gold that I had left over to win Dom. At the time, what I didn't realise, pulling that Euron out of his hand, is actually that's really decisive play in this game. I think if he'd been able to get Euron on the table, might have been able to defend, kind of hold me off for a little while, and kind of push back. However, entering the 5th plot phase with Greyjoy behind, I think they're always going to really struggle to come back from this point now. As a control deck, you've managed to get them under control. I've targetedly removed their key characters. It's going to be really hard for him to come back now. What he's done, calling the banners. I'm imagining he probably planned to do that before Euron had Theon had left his hand on the table. But maybe he's got maybe he's got another Euron in his hand. Maybe he's got an Asher. And we're just talking at this point kind of what the tipping point of this game was, because the game's always got one, and it was the hand's judgment on his Risen from the Sea. That was absolutely the point in this game where it tipped. If he'd been able to keep that Baelon around, and then be able to play out Aeron and Theon, and probably get Euron out onto the table as well, this game I would have been steamrolled. Managing to cancel that save on Baelon really has kind of hurt him in this game, kind of long run. So Rich is left just kind of playing out some of those low cost cards in his hand, and putting a little bird just so he's got an intrigue icon on someone. So what you've kind of seen in this game is just the power of Martel. Yes, it's a Martel Dragon, yes, kind of Miri are kind of a keystone to the deck, but what it can also do is it can just kind of sit back, do Martel things, control the board. I haven't seen a Gaston in this game, which would have been very nice, especially against a Greyjoy deck that maybe might have struggled a bit more with the economy. I could have used kind of Viperize if I'd drawn it, which I haven't seen to in this game, to then remove the card. However, what I have been able to do is just kind of control the board, eke out those kind of slow challenges, just go on really kind of slow board dominance. He's going to kneel my Trinity grounds, so I've got no gold to play any events. As Persfea, the first player having the action window to do that. And I think that is kind of one of the reasons why Richard is such a good player. He's very meticulous, doesn't miss his triggers, reads the board really well, but he also kind of, despite being, as well as being really meticulous, lets players make mistakes. He offers them challenge windows so that he can then get more information, offers people the chance to do things earlier when they might not want to. So what you can see here is just a military challenge, me realizing I have to oppose it despite having board dominance. If he gets off a couple of Seastone chairs, that's going to really hurt me. and this is one of the reasons why I really like the raiding longship, because as opposed to now he's just knelt out one character, what he would have done is he'd been able to nullify my Unsullied, and he would have been able to get through those sea stone chairs, which is why I like the raiding longships so much. However, what we have realised here is the throwing axe is Ironborn only. Raiders from Pike aren't Ironborn, so unfortunately we're going to have to roll this back. And I now unfortunately know what Richard is going to do next turn, trying to kill off those Unsullied. I did offer him if he wanted to do it the other way. However, he would have had to use his Salty Navigator, which has got his little bird on it, which means he wouldn't have been able to try and push through an intrigue challenge. So that really has hurt him, I think. So I do think the Raiders from Pike do increase the value of the throwing axe quite a lot. However, for me personally, I think it's too much of a janky combo to really be worth the deck slots. You're effectively, if you want to be able to see it consistently, you kind of need to run 2-3 Raiders from Pike, which are a military monocon 2 strength for 2. Personally, in that slot, I do prefer the Salty Navigator because it lets you control the initiative more. And then you're dedicating probably 3 more slots. And what I've been able to do here is I've lost the miniature challenge because he's... Why did I lose the miniature challenge? And what we're talking about is normally I would get rid of the put to the sword. However, with the current board state, seeing his hand, I don't think I'm at risk of losing a military challenge by 5. So I'm probably going to go with the current board state, get rid of the throwing axe, and then do an intrigue challenge to try and maybe get rid of the put to the sword as well. And I think when you're doing things like Seeing in Flames and doing his Viperize, that's really one of the key things. You're not just going for the best card in their hand. What you need to go for is the best card in their hand right now. With the current board state, as it's going, what is their best card? Like, if you've just got them on the ropes, you want to get rid of their Risen from the Sea, or their saves, or maybe even their hand's judgment that might cancel a different event. Like if you've played Seen in Flames and they haven't got one to cancel it. Or what you might want is you might want to get rid of their removal. You might want to get rid of that bomb character they're going to drop in next round that's really going to hurt you. It is all about reading the current board state, but they might have a board full of bomb characters, and one more might not make a difference. Actually, you might want them to play it so that you can wildfire. And I'm just doing challenge with Doran to get some more draw off him. So what you have seen here is, yeah, personally I don't think Doran's a great 6-cost character, but that insight, especially in a Martel deck when I haven't seen those 3 Green Blood traders, which I've got, that draw has been really key in this game, letting me keep on top of the Greyjoy and keep that tempo going. And as you can see with the intrigue challenge with Doran, I did manage to pull put to the sword. And my Dom because of Ariane. Now what I don't like here is that Ariane is left on the table. I probably should have used her in a challenge, maybe bounced her back to hand, because I think now Richard is in a position to wildfire aggressively, just to trim down some of those effective characters I've got on the board. What you just saw there is I had, for some godforsaken reason, for a couple of months just been carrying around an extra power token. I had 16 and I kept miscounting and trying to get to 16 power to win a game. But there's another metamate, Daisy, just demanding to take that power off me so that I only carry around 15. Slightly less confusing. I'm just playing Confiscation out because I have to. I've got it in my plot deck, not because I'm just discarding that little bird, though I don't think this is really necessarily going to affect the game hugely. I obviously killed off, I'm thinking about killing off the Unsullied. My thinking was that I want that military icon, because even at this point in the game where I'm so close to the finish line, what I don't want to happen is I don't want to lose a random unopposed military challenge. But Nymeria is going to let me kind of prevent that for now. Nearing the end of the game here, seeing a reducer, using the King's Road, just really playing out the game as I would do, just in case there were any kind of random surprises. And what we see is Miri. She's not going to do much work for me right now. She's another intrigue power icon. There isn't really any characters that I'm going to target kill, but sometimes it's just fun to get out your big stick. However that sounds. And really what I've got Varus, Tears, Condemned. The Tears that I've had in my hand since the beginning of the game. And are Condemned because Rich doesn't have any power icons out. Oh, and he gets an Iron Mines. This would have been so much more helpful at the beginning of the game, saving himself from a lot of pain with the Tears and the Put of Swords and everything else. Unfortunately, it's just luck of the draw. So I think kind of a summary of this game really has been that draw might not equal win anymore, but draw very nearly equals win. Target removal is king. Killing key characters is absolutely one of the best ways to win this game. In aggro decks, in control decks, in tempo decks, in any deck, kind of that targeted removal is going to be absolutely key. Richard, again, something which would have been quite nice earlier, playing Nightmares on Miri. Would have been nice earlier, so that he could have blanked Nymeria before I stole an icon. But I think this is just a case of Richard not being able to draw his cards in the right order, not having the saves that he needed when he needed them, despite being Greyjoy and probably running kind of 5 saves in his deck, maybe more, 6. I don't know if he's running Hand's Judgment. I don't think he is in this deck, because I think he's thinking was he's got enough saves to not worry too much about Tyr's release and everything else. And I just need 2 more power. Getting Insight off Doran, got Richard down to 0 power. I'm just going through my head to see if there's a way I can win. If I could get an unopposed and then win Dom, I'd be alright. And what I was just talking through here is I passed because I was thinking that if I did the military with Nymeria, he would kill a character, defend, kill a character, then be able to swing back with me with military, use the Seastone Chair to kill Ariane. So what I just did there was go, nope, I'm not going to try and rush the finish line. I only need 1 more power. I'll win dominance this turn, and then I will try and push for the win next turn. If there was a way for me to win there, guys, please let me know. I'd be really interested to see what I've missed. However, by this point, I feel like I've got quite good control of the board, and I can just play to win next turn. So, guys, that's the end of our video. I'm very sorry it cut out there. I think the battery died on the camera, but I'm pretty sure next turn just did a big power challenge and push for the win. So, if you've got any feedback, any comments for the video, for the players, or for me myself, please just leave them below. I really enjoy reading them. It's really helpful. So, I'll see you guys next Tuesday. Thanks. Bye.